Good morning. My name is Nathaniel Reveal, and I'll be your service coordinator today. I'm glad you're with us on this day that we celebrate mothers in the act of mothering. If you're a visitor, we're especially glad to have you here. Let's begin by lighting our chalice. Karen Spencer Smith is in the sanctuary now. Mindful of the Mystery of Thresholds by Reverend L.A. McCree. Source of all that is living, as we gather this morning, mindful of the mystery of thresholds, calm our uneasy and anxious spirits. May we be open to the mystery and blessings of what awaits us on the other side of great transitions. Allow love and light to penetrate places of fear, desperation, hopelessness, and despair. Encourage our spirits and strengthen our connections so that we may be a threshold people. Give us the certainty to walk with those who are standing at the threshold of indecision, of uncertainty and doubt. Provide for us the courage to speak truth to power. May we continue to love unapologetically. Let this love carry us from indecision and doubt to peace and resolve. Be with us now and always, holding us in the tender moments of growth. Welcome all. Our Soul Matters theme in May is thresholds. Thresholds are transitions between different times in our lives, doorways we walk through to new beginnings. So today, our minister, Reverend Cynthia Cain, will share with us a sermon titled Birth, Death, and the In-Between, Thresholds We All Must Cross. Our virtual services are running smoothly every Sunday, but just in case there's a glitch, please know that someone is working quickly to correct it. Also know that the service can be viewed later on YouTube. Although we may be physically distancing, know that GNUUC is here to support you. Reach out to our minister, Reverend Cynthia Cain, by email to cyncain@gnuuc.org or cell phone at 859-221-3034. The Free Church tradition, of which we are a part, does not offer up a creed or a certain set of beliefs that everyone must accept in order to belong to the community. Instead, the boundaries of our community are determined by commitment and participation. Our central question is not, what do we believe, but rather, what values will we uphold and how will we do them together? Our covenant, the promises we make to each other, is at the heart of what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. And so feel free to join me in the recitation of our covenant. We covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit as it is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world. So, if you would, let's everyone join together separately in Where Do We Come From? This song was recorded at the General Assembly in 2008, and they'll walk us through each of the three different parts. So just pick the part that seems right for you. Here we go.
With words by Paul Gauguin and the music by Brian Tate. We intentionally chose it again this morning, which we sang it yesterday morning, to bridge the two services together. So we're going to revisit again how this works. It's in 3 parts. I'm again joined this morning by Anise Hastings and John Hubert, who will each lead a part as well. I have part 1, Anise has part 2, and beautiful John has part 3. So can I have the F? So I'll teach it to you, all 3 parts. Here's part 1. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? And part 2 with Anise. See if I can hit that C this morning. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Part 3 with John is my favorite part. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit. And I invite you to sing the part that resonates the most with you. We will start with part 1, then part 2, then part 3. Then we will cut part 1 and part 2, so that all we're left with is the mystery. Here we go, part 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we?
Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery.
Beautiful. With words by Paul Gauguin and
It's like singing in your shower, except that even the rest of your family can't hear you. I like it. A certain kind of freedom. All right. Our Time for All Sages today is brought to us live by Jennifer Kate Seidel, who appears to be in the Sonoran Desert for her story. And I imagine very much that that's thematic, but we shall see.
Thank you, Nathaniel.
Thanks,
Good morning,
Jennifer.
everybody. I hope you can everyone hear me okay? Give me a nod if you can. All right. Okay, today's story is from the Sufi tradition, which is the mystic tradition of Islam. And I think it will go along well with Reverend Cynthia's overall theme. It is called The Stream and the Desert. And I'm used to making hand gestures when I tell a story, so we're going to see how this goes. Once upon a time, there was a stream that originated in the mountains, and it flowed down the mountains and bubbled over rocks and went down into holes and bubbled up again and had a merry old time until it came to a desert. And then when it hit that desert, it tried to flow into the sand, and the sand just kept drinking it up. It couldn't go anywhere. It just stopped. And it didn't know what on earth it was going to do. No matter how it flowed and how it flowed, the sand just kept drinking it up. So finally, it just sort of sat there, said, how am I going to cross this desert? And as it sat, it seemed as though the desert itself answered, if the wind can cross me, then you can. Well, it thought about it, and then it said back to the desert, but I'm flowing and I'm flowing and I am not getting through. And then it sat, and the desert said, if you keep trying what you've always tried, it won't work. Either you'll disappear or you'll turn into a great muddy mess. The stream said, well, then what am I going to do? Well, said the desert, you will have to let the wind come carry you. But you mean I'll have to stop being a stream? Yes, said the desert, but you won't stop being the essence of who you are. Oh no, said the stream, I don't want to stop being a stream. You will still be your essential part. Let the wind carry your essential part over the desert, where it can let you become a new stream to flow on. Well, the stream didn't like that idea, and it pondered, and it tried to flow across the desert some more, and it hesitated, and finally it didn't see any other way. So it sat still, and the wind blew against it, and the wind started carrying the water up into the air until it formed a cloud. The wind blew the cloud over the desert to the other side of the mountains on the other side. And the stream, or what used to be the stream, was scared and worried the whole way. But it got to the other side of the mountains, and the air let the water go as rain, where it fell down and formed a new stream. And because it had been so worried about the experience, it remembered it more than it had last time. And the new stream went on its way with a new understanding of who it really was. And that is the end of the story.
Spectacular, my friend. So we're temporarily a cloud, I take it, as I look at this Zoom window full of faces. We'll be a stream again. Let's take a moment now with Fran Gabor on a recorded song for Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child. It's hymn number 97.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long way from home, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. A long way from home. A long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long way from home. A long, long way from home. True.
Each month, we designate a nonprofit organization, either in our community or across the world, to share our plate with. The Share the Plate partner for May continues to be the Second Harvest Food Bank here in Nashville. Second Harvest's mission is to feed hungry people and to work to solve hunger issues here in Davidson County. They work to meet extraordinary needs after the Nashville 2020 tornadoes and then ongoing during the coronavirus pandemic. So every dollar you give helps provide at least 4 meals to families in need through the Second Harvest Food Bank. Just a quick reminder about how the Share the Plate funds are divided. Half of the checks that are made out to GNUUC with the memo Share the Plate, and half of online donations tagged with account Share the Plate. Online donations can be made via Breeze, via NashvilleUU.org, or via text. For those of you supporting the congregation with a recurring pledge through Breeze, thank you. If you would like to make a contribution this way, there are 3 simple options. Mail your paper check to GNUUC at 374 Hicks Road, Nashville, Tennessee 37221, with pledge or Share the Plate in the memo line, or visit NashvilleUU.org/donate and fill out the form. Or finally, send a text message to 615-246-5553 with the amount and the account. We'll pause for a few minutes so you can write down this information. Thank you for your support. Before we begin Reverend Cynthia's homily, let's take a moment for quiet meditation. She's put together a series of special photographs for us to enjoy.
Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them in the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. As you have sheltered behind doors, we haven't been able to invite anyone in. That's a loss and a grief. We have seen the death of many dreams. Yes, and we have heard of the deaths of too many people. When asked how many people were killed on September 11th, the mayor of New York City replied, "More than we can bear." And yet, every day, more people than were killed on September 11th are dying. There's hardly a way that we can imagine to welcome this. As Rumi writes in his poem, we don't even know yet what this is, how it started, and how much loss it may ultimately cause. We can only do our best and wait. We are all either mothers or we had a mother. Many of us have lost our mothers. Some have chosen not to become or have been unable to be mothers. Motherhood is too big an entity for one word or one holiday to encompass. Most people don't even know that Mother's Day began as an appeal by Julia Ward Howe in 1870. Julia Ward Howe, a Unitarian, she made this appeal as a proclamation against war and its carnage. A call for mothers everywhere to raise sons who are dedicated to peace. 36 years passed before the national holiday we call Mother's Day was established. When Julia Ward Howe wrote, "The mother has a sacred and commanding word to say to the sons who owe their lives to her suffering." That word should now be heard and answered as never before. When I read this, I can't help thinking of Roseanne when the TV show Roseanne was young. Her reply to her daughter Darlene when Darlene was a teenager, and she questioned why her mother got to make all the rules. And Roseanne said, "When you give birth to me, then you can make the rules." I've tried that out on my kids a few times. But 200 years later, what has changed? Birth and death have always been the province of women. It's women who go through the challenges of birth, the physical challenges of pregnancy and delivery. Women who have historically performed the ablutions, the wailing, the Shiva, and the wakes that pepper the many ways death is acknowledged. Who plants the flowers in the graveyards? Who sews the burial shrouds? Sits with cancer patients? Cleans up after wars and tend the sick and the dying in hospitals and care facilities? Historically and culturally, the answer is clear. In most societies and cultures, it has been women. That is what has changed. That is what has changed. Just as we are learning to reorder our assumptions about gender and identity, so we are becoming aware that mothering can be done by genders other than female. Males and gender-neutral people are nurses, women, physicians. Men are handling childcare. Men tend beautiful flower gardens, dance ballet, nurture and raise children. And many men resist and eschew war and all of its concomitant violence. Maybe someday, Mother's Day, which is to me is a problematic day at best, given how many have lost mothers, are estranged from mothers, and wish to be mothers but will not be. Maybe Mother's Day someday will be no more, and we can celebrate Nurturer's Day. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. In Buddhist practice, the idea of thresholds and doors carries great significance. The pictures that I had for you on the slide program are some photos of doors that I have taken in Italy, in France, and in Transylvania, and a lot of them are also from Cuba. There's something about doors that calls to me, maybe to you as well. My first Buddhist teacher in Southern California, she was a transgender woman, and maybe the first transgender a person that I actually knew. Her name is Catriona Reed. She often told us in her lectures and also in casual conversation about some new trouble that would come up either in the world or within our practice. She would say, "This too is a door to life. This too is a door to life." You know how some phrase or idea that you hear sticks with you always when most others fade? I think that's because each time you revisit it, it holds up a measure of truth. I love her words because they give me a new understanding about doors. I've always loved doors, and I love doorways. There are so many kinds of doors and doorways, and even rules about coming in and going out. In a Buddhist practice hall, a zendo, you take off your shoes before you enter the hall, and you enter and bow to the altar, which contains the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Before you sit on your mat, you bow to your mat, and then you turn, and at the end of the sitting meditation, you bow into the circle to the collected Sangha. Doors are both impediments and openings. We can definitely think of birth as a door into consciousness and death as a door into the unknown. But Katrina's words always reminded me that we are always crossing thresholds as we age. However, some doors close to us. I will not be a ballerina, something I dreamed of when I was young. I will not be prom queen. I am pretty sure I won't write the great American novel. Allowing doors to close is a way of handling grief and a way of letting go. It can be just a platitude to say when one door closes, another opens. No, some doors close and stay closed, and for a long time, you may stand looking at the doors that have closed before any new door becomes apparent to you. A door closing and acknowledging the closing of doors and letting them close can be a way of coming to terms with limitation, with finitude. But at the same time, doorways are openings and can open throughout our entire bodily life. Doors to wisdom, doors to acceptance, to love, to service, to knowledge, to insight. If we can live knowing impermanence, we can die in peace. You can walk through these 3 doors to liberation anytime. The saying of these doors is, when we find ourselves in great difficulty, take one door and get out. Briefly, here they are. Buddhist philosophy and every school of Buddhist thought has a version of these 3 doors to life: emptiness, signlessness, and aimlessness. Through contemplation, we can see deeply into one thing. We can discover the true nature of what is there. The notion of impermanence, of non-self, is so challenging, and it does require a long time on the cushion or in contemplation to really understand. Through contemplation, we discover the true nature of what is there. The notion of impermanence, of no self, it can't liberate you even if you understand it intellectually you must have the insight, and insight comes through practice and concentration. So the third door is emptiness. And to understand emptiness, we might think of a flower. Flower is impermanent, but it contains within it the rain, the clouds, the seed that it once was, and also its death. That's the nature of impermanence. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how we may have bad feelings about our parents, and some of us do. Some of us have them even though our parents are no longer living. And he says, people will say, I just going to shut that person out of my life. I never want to see my mother again. And likewise, some parents disown their own children. And he laughs. He says, you can't do that because your parent is within you. We contain within us the seeds of many, many, many hundreds of generations of people who came together so that we could be here now. Signlessness is the second door. And for signlessness, he says, Thich Nhat Hanh says, think of a cloud, of falling in love with a cloud. But the cloud is not the thing. The finger pointing to the moon isn't the moon. It's just the finger pointing to the moon. And clouds are very, passing. They're very impermanent. We can see the impermanence in clouds, and yet they never disappear. And that is something that Thich Nhat Hanh speaks about often, is that although we face life and death, we are only manifest in this body for a short time. But just as we did not know who we were or where we were before we were born, so we don't know how something of us will continue on. Aimlessness is the third door. He says, don't put something in front of you and start running after it. I really love that. Don't run after what you already are. Stop running. Happiness is right here. He often says, meditation is not a way to happiness. Happiness is the way. In this very moment, happiness. Just one step, peace, joy, healing, enlightenment. All are available in the present moment. That's the teaching of aimlessness. Everything, he says, relies on everything else to manifest. And that's why Thich Nhat Hanh created the new word, interbeing. Finally, there is a door to life that is self-regard and self-love. Now you're thinking, Cynthia, you just said there is no self. The self that we think of as who we are is very transient. In fact, it's changing every second. But when we are able to look deeply into this temporary self, Rumi is teaching us an essential insight. Welcome, he writes, and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. This task is not easy. It requires having compassion not only for others, but for your own being. It won't happen because you say, oh, I get it. She told me that. I get that intellectually, or I've read a lot of books that tell me the same thing. It requires a spiritual discipline to master. It doesn't have to be the one that I have. It could be art, gardening, friendship, conversation, reading. But a spiritual discipline is required to master. And what you must do if you want to find the wisdom of self-regard is go back to the youngest version of yourself that you can find in your memory. Because that version of yourself is still a part of you. When you find this young child in a photograph, in a story, in a memory, you listen to them and find out what they need. Usually what they need is compassion. So take this child of 2, 11, or 7 into your arms and extend compassion to them. Becoming a loving mother to yourself. Practice this every day, and you will gradually come to feel loved, to feel worthy, and to deeply understand the notion of interbeing. Treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight, the dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes. May this day be a day of learning to mother ourselves and one another, and to express gratitude to all the nurturers, male, female, or neither, that we know and love, and that we see doing this incredibly valuable work of saving lives. So may it be.
Have compassion for your own being. Stop chasing. Happiness is already here. Happiness is not the goal. Happiness is the way. Let's invite Fran back for Sleep, My Child.
Sleep, my child, and peace attend thee all through the night. I who love you shall be near you all through the night. Soft the drowsy hours are creeping, ill and slumber sleeping, my loving vigil keeping all through the night. Mother, I can feel you near me all through the night. Father, I know you can hear me all through the night. And when I am your age nearly, still I will remember clearly how you sang and held me dearly all through the night. While the moon her watch is keeping all through
Each worship service, we take some time for people to share joys and concerns from the past week. To honor each person who would like to share today, we'll begin with folks who are using video through Zoom. Please raise your hand, and then Jesse will call your name so you can speak. After we've worked our way through the folks on video, we'll unmute the folks who have called in on the telephone. Oh, I don't see any today. And give them a chance to share as well. Please note that other folks are watching on YouTube, and this is being recorded. So bear that in mind when you decide what to share. I myself wanted to offer, before we start, a sadness and a joy. Sadness is the loss this week of Richard Wayne Penniman, better known as Little Richard, the inventor of rock and roll and founding inductee to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the joy is that the board is wrapping up its church year, and we're closing in on May and June, our final meetings. And I am so honored to have worked with all those people through unbelievably complicated and difficult times. So I think I can do this in alphabetical order. To Eddie Bailey, no, I'm not going to be able to do it. To Eddie Bailey, to Sandy Blands, to Susan Menking, to Teresa Tarkington Kersey, to Jenny Gimignani, and Karen Spencer Smith, and our honorary member, Reverend Cynthia. Thank you so much for all that you've given us this year. Okay, soapbox finished. Who's got something that they would like to share this morning?
Thank you, Nathaniel. I'm lighting candles in recognition of your sorrow and your joy. We like working with you too.
If you've got a hand up, let me know. Wave it high. I see Fran has something she'd like to share. Go ahead, Fran.
Yes, this actually follows up with your mention of the loss of Little Richard. Most of you know my son Kinsey is a courier for DHL, and he does part of Murfreesboro, and then he heads down south to other parts of Middle Tennessee, one of which is my hometown, Tullahoma. And it's not a regular stop for him anymore. Things changed a little bit, but for a few years, one of his regular stops was an eye office for, had an optometrist and eyeglasses and stuff like that. And one day he was in there, and Little Richard was sitting in the waiting room. And my son, because he was raised on to appreciate rock and roll, recognized him and went over and spoke to him. And he said that Little Richard was very gracious and welcoming. And so they had a nice, brief conversation. Little Richard was a patient waiting to see the eye doctor. And this happened 2 or 3 more times over the next few years. And also, Little Richard at the time, and I think also right before his death, actually resided in Lynchburg, about 10 miles away. But occasionally, Kinsey would be on the road in his van, and he would see Little Richard in his vehicle, and they would wave to each other. So anyway, Kinsey just considered that meeting with him and their subsequent sort of a mini friendship very special. So Kinsey was hit kind of hard at the loss of this musical icon. So I just wanted to share that with you. And also I want to share how great it is to just always get to, in spirit, know that we're together on these Sunday mornings, even if we can't physically be together.
Thank you, Fran. I light this candle in recognition of your sharing.
All right. Other hands? I got Sandy and Larry. I'll let you duke it out over who's going to go first. And hang on. One of you is going to need to turn off your speakers. There you go. Thank you, friends. Nope. Try again. Almost there. Sandy, why don't you try again? Nope. No. We're having a little trouble with the feedback there, friends.
So actually, this is Jesse, your
Please.
host.
Thanks,
Larry,
Jesse.
if you will turn off all of your speakers, please. And then Sandy, you can speak first, and then you can swap.
Thanks, Jesse.
Okay. Does this work?
It does.
Okay. I wanted to offer a joy that my family has had this week. When the power was off, our congregation offered them, my son and my husband, a spot to sleep in comfort for 2 nights, and we couldn't be happier. It has been a true sanctuary for us. I know, that's the way I feel. Now, Larry will try his.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Sandy. I light a candle for your joy. We're so happy and pleased to be able to offer sanctuary in so many ways.
Larry?
Yeah, for me, one of the things that hit home was the power went out from Sunday evening until Wednesday evening. and it's amazing just how freaking dependent we are. Maybe we're disconnected from the world or something, but boy, no computer. And what Sandy was talking about, we had to sleep over at the church because we didn't have any electricity to run our CPAP machines. We have sleep apnea, Eric and I. But you just take these things for granted, and you don't realize all the things that have to go to put that together. And certainly is a joy to have the electricity back on.
Thank you, Larry. I light a candle for your joy.
I think I see Susan Menking. Yes, go ahead, Susan.
I just wanted to add that to your comments, Larry. When the first time Manfred went down to Haiti, I was not with him. And when he came back at the end of 8 days, he looked somehow sort of dirty and disheveled. And I said, well, welcome back to the real world. And then all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, he's been at the real world. And so then I changed it and said, welcome back to the artificial world, which is what we live in.
Thank you, Susan, for sharing.
I see Loretta.
Hi, guys. I have a real joy. Yesterday evening, which was Mother's Day morning in Australia, 4 generations of us were talking. I was talking with my daughter, Kristen, my granddaughter, Maggie, and my great-granddaughter, Kenley, and her little brother. And it was just amazing technology that can allow that to happen, but it was just gloriously wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Loretta, for sharing. I light a candle in recognition of your joy.
All right, I got Jesse Spencer Smith. I think I see you with a joy.
Thank you. I have a couple of joys, actually. One on behalf of Barbara Belfilio. I just thought that it was so sweet. Barbara Belfilio's a daughter and her family, Laura, Joe, Ted, And L Gold made a donation to the church in honor of their mother on Mother's Day. And I thought that was such a sweet gesture.
Wonderful.
I also have a joy to see Teresa Tarkington there. Apparently not in the hospital, but apparently someplace in a forest, which is lovely. But it is one of the joys of meeting virtually, where even if some of us are in a place where we can't physically be together, you know, and that can be in the hospital. And we heart you too, Teresa, absolutely. And finally, just a joy for Mother's Day and for Karen, who's been such a wonderful mother to our children. And I'm thankful every day when I wake up and I realize that she's right there.
Thank you, Jesse. I light a candle in recognition of your joys. Nathaniel, I also have a joy and a sorrow to share.
Mm-hmm.
More of a sorrow and a joy. So I've been nurturing 100 or so feet of wildflower garden in along the road in my homeowner association community between Brentwood and Cool Springs, and had a long, hard chat with one of the board members this week, where we decided that it was really just not going to be possible for me to keep my wildflower garden. So that's the sorrow. The joy is that these flowers that we have today are from that garden, and that I'm going to be able to transplant a number of those to other parts of the yard and re-sow a wildflower garden in some place that's more compatible with the neighborhood standards. So not a total loss. I haven't given up yet, but like Cynthia said, you know, doors are pathways, and I think I'm going to have a really rocking landscape after this. Thank you.
Teresa, did I see your hand go up for a minute there? Yeah. Okay. Teresa, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to wish all the wonderful moms in our congregation happy Mother's Day today. My own mom is not around, so a lot of you have mommed me in the last year or two, and I sure do appreciate it. I love you all dearly, and I hope you have the best day. And I think that I can also say ditto from Wayne. So anyway, love you all. Happy Mother's Day, one and all, men included. Don't let you guys out. So too. I love this part, just kind of looking at all of you. So take care, and thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. I lit this candle for your joy, and another for our mothers who are so very much alive in our hearts.
I see Mike Morgan. Go ahead, Mike, please.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Mike.
This week, I made the decision and to sell the farm, and I have a buyer for it. We will move forward very, very rapidly with that. So doors and changing and letting go of things, all of that resonated very well with me today. I'm in a very, very good place. I am at peace. The farm is going to someone who really, really loves it.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. I'm so boy, that's a Freudian slip. Thank you so very much, Mike. I think it's because I feel Larry's presence with us too, with that. I light a candle for you, for the farm, and for everything that you shared there.
All right, folks. I don't see any more hands up. Let's see if I'm reading the iconography correctly. There aren't any humans on telephones calling in today. So I think If there are no objections, that'll wrap up this part of the service. Karen, want to give us a final candle?
Final candle for those joys and sorrows that are not shared but held deeply in our hearts.
So join us now in Spirit of Life. You'll hear the first verse sung in Spanish, the second verse sung in English. Sing along because no one else can hear you. Please join me in the chalice extinguishing words that you'll see in your chat window down below. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fear, which reconciles all who are separated, be in and among us now and always. Whatever your experiences with motherhood, I believe you will find them surprisingly unique. To paraphrase the sociologist Dawn Marie Dow from the book Mothering While Black, families are characterized by different intersections of racial identity, gender, and class, and each require distinct strategies to achieve the same outcome. which to me really feels like a fancy way of encouraging us on this Mother's Day to tell someone, tell me about your mother, and then listen carefully. So happy Mother's Day to all those who support the children of our human family.